welcome to today's statewide webinar that's hosted by SPEDTex and Partners Resource Network. My name is Sarah Untersey, and I am part of the SPEDTex team. The topic for today's webinar is the Parent-Directed Special Education Services, or PDSES program. A few reminders. This webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be posted to our SPEDTex site. It usually takes about a week in order for that to be posted, but we will drop our website link in the chat so that you will be able to access that once it becomes available. The chat feature is only available if you require technical assistance. However, you may put questions in the Q&A section. The presenters will review your submissions, which will help us with clarifications and FAQs in the future. However, there will not be a live Q&A today. SPEDTex is the Special Education Information Center for Texas. We are a collaborative project between Region 10 Education Service Center and the Texas Education Agency. We help parents understand their rights and responsibilities under IDEA, and we are there to help facilitate collaboration when there are concerns between the parent and the school district. We also serve as a resource for educators. We offer support via phone, email, or live chat for families and professionals. We have webinars and resources. Our contact information is on the screen. I'm now going to turn it over to Stephanie McLaughlin to share some additional information about Partners Resource Network.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stephanie McLaughlin. I am the Training and Evaluation Specialist for Partners Resource Network. Partners Resource Network is the nonprofit agency that operates the Texas statewide network of parent training and information centers. We are funded through the Department of Education Office of Special Education Programs. And throughout Texas, we have 4 projects known as PACT, PATH, PIN, and TEAM. Our mission here at Partners Resource Network is to empower and support Texas families and individuals impacted by disabilities or special healthcare needs. We do this through a network of highly skilled, regionally located coordinators who are knowledgeable in local policies, services, and resources, as well as state and national guidelines. We provide training, information, and one-on-one assistance at no cost to Texas families and youth. We serve parents of children and youth with disabilities from birth to age 26, as well as youth self-advocates between the ages of 14 and 26. All of our services are provided in both English and Spanish.
Thank you, Stephanie. We are excited to welcome our presenters, Huck Spear and Katrina Mathis. Huck is the Family Engagement and Outreach Coordinator at the Texas Education Agency in the Office of Special Populations and Student Supports, and Katrina is an Assistant Director at the Region 10 Education Service Center. They are joining us today to discuss the Parent-Directed Special Education Services Grant. And at this time, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to Huck.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction, Sarah, and thank you all for joining me. It is wonderful to be with you and exciting and slightly nerve-wracking to see how many of you are here. This is wonderful. As Sarah mentioned, I am the PDSES coordinator at the Texas Education Agency. I've been with this program basically since it began. And so we did a similar version of this presentation last year, and I'm excited to be back to show you, those of you attending this year as well. I know there's so many of you. I think that there's probably a lot of different audiences here that some of you are probably already familiar with the program. Maybe if you've already applied or know somebody who's applied. Some of you, this might be like just really learning about it for the first time. So we tried to put together this presentation in a way that will be beneficial to all of you. We hope that it's helpful and informative. And again, thank you for being here and for your time and your attention. Also you'll get to hear from her later, but I'm joined by Katrina Mathis, my colleague, who leads the PDSES team at the Education Service Center at Region 10 in Richardson, Texas, and they are wonderful. They are they're the grantee for the program, and they provide the majority of the technical assistance. So if any moment on your PDSES journey you encounter something you need help with and you reach out, it's probably going to be Katrina and her team who help you. Let's see. Can I get this slide to work? There we go. So our agenda today, we're going to cover five main agenda topics. I'm going to give a brief overview of the program, what it is, and who's eligible. I'll spin through a quick history of the program since it began in 2021. I will show the application process. So those of you who are hoping to apply for this grant, I'll show you how to do that. And then Katrina is going to show you the shopping experience in the PDSES marketplace in Class Wallet. She'll walk you through that exciting thing, and then we'll cover some of the most frequently asked questions. That said, we've tried to embed a lot of the most frequently asked questions. The answers to a lot of them will be said we tried to cover them in our presentation as well. So just heads up, it might get repetitive at the end with the frequently asked questions. Okay, the overview of the program, just really quickly. Oops, wrong button. Sorry. What is PDSES? So the Parent Directed Special Education Services Program, it's a grant program for families of students served through special education. So it provides a $1,500 spending account to the family of an eligible student, and families use that money to purchase educational goods and educational services for their student. One misnomer I frequently like to go over. Some families feel that they have the expectation that they're going to sort of receive a $1,500 check or a $1,500 debit card or even cash. That's not true. If you're expecting that, you will be disappointed. The program doesn't send families actual money. It gives families access to money in an account that is inside the PDSES online marketplace. So, and Katrina will walk you through that marketplace later, but I'd just like to say that out front so that families, know that and aren't disappointed when they don't get actual funding in their hands. That never happens. Through that account, families can purchase educational goods like books and laptops, computers and school supplies, or services, tutoring, therapy, summer camps. So they can purchase all sorts of things, but it has to be through the PDSES marketplace. So who's eligible? Eligibility is based on the student, but the parent is the person who has to apply. And the definition of a parent is defined by the Texas Education Code 29041. It's quite broad. It's the parent, it has to be a resident of Texas who is a natural or adoptive parent, managing or possessory conservator, legal guardian, custodian, or another person or other person with legal authority to act on behalf of the child. So that's the parent, that's who can apply. And that parent can only apply if their student is eligible. So to be eligible, the student must be enrolled in a Texas public school, any grade. So early education grades all the way up through senior in high school and even 18 plus programs. If the student is enrolled in a Texas public school, they are eligible. If, number two, they are receiving special education services through an individualized education program or an IEP. So keep in mind, and we'll cover this later, this is it's not all students with a disability. It's all students with a disability who are served through special education, which is another area that some families have confusion. The last thing is it's a one-time only grant. So if you've received the PDSES grant in the past, you're not eligible to apply again. It's one time only. Okay, and here, this is a graphic. You'll see it on pretty much all of our outreach materials. The program's very popular. And so we have had, it used to be that the application was open year round, and we've had to move to an application window system where the application is only open for a certain amount of time each year. So this year's application window is April. April 1st through April 30th. That is when you can actually submit an application. And it opens at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st and closes at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on April 30th. Okay, let me run through very quickly the history of the program. This is mostly just because I'm proud of it. I've been here since the beginning. I can't believe it. It's already this will be our 6th year. This year's application window is we're going into year 6. The graphic shows several things, but across the top boxes, these are the number of accounts that were awarded each year, basically January through December. Those numbers are completely dependent on just the amount of funding we had available that year. I wish I had, for many reasons, I wish I was just super wealthy and could fund every single person, but we haven't been able to fund everybody because that's the reason, or because of the funding. Also, like I mentioned, we've moved to an application window system. So it sort of shows on the bottom boxes below, like our first application window from last year was February 3rd through March 31st. We got over 83,000 applications. And then this year's application window, like I've said, is April 1st through April 30th. And so some of our big top line successes, so far we've awarded 236,326 accounts. Katrina's team has approved nearly 700,000 orders for almost 2.8 million items, and over 700,000 services have been purchased so far with these funds. And I think I speak for all of us. This is, one of my favorite slides is beautiful child here. Also, we love working with families. It's sort of the most rewarding part of our jobs and my job. We're lucky to be able to work with a program where we get to see direct impact of our work directly all the way down to students, much like teachers get to do. We love helping families. It's a program that we are very invested and interested in helping families. You will find if you need help and you reach out to us, I hope you find that we are responsive. Whether it's answering questions about just generally how the program works, or let's say you need help getting your student service provider added to the platform, we can help with that. We can help you if you're not sure how you want to spend the funds, we'll help you with that. We love working with families and helping families. So we collect these parent testimonials like you see on the screen, and there's many, many more. That I'll share a few more with you here. So we enjoy pretty high satisfaction rate. 96% of the folks who take our survey are satisfied with the program. We know it's not perfect. There's always stuff we can make better, and we work tirelessly to do so. But we know the program is making a positive difference, and being a parent is hard, especially being the parent of a student with a disability. And so we know that, we understand that, and we're here to help as much as and as best as we can. So we make parents central to our mission. So the reason I suspect a lot of you may be here is just because you want to, or because you want to apply. I'm going to walk through that process as best as I can. So there's 3 basic steps. I'm going to cover sort of what you can do today to prepare to apply, and then there's the actual applying that happens during the application window on April 1st, the opening on April 1st, and then how to check your status. There's also this it's got a star on it. There's a certain thing that some of you may need to do where you attach or upload documentation to your application, and I'm going to spend the time to walk through that in case that's something that's necessary for you. So let's move on. So what can you do today to get ready to apply if you're somebody who wants to apply for your student? We highly recommend visiting the PDSES website at pdses.tea.texas.gov. This is the best place to get updated and accurate information. I have poked around Google a little bit, and I've seen there are some places refer to our program, and then they might not be completely accurate or updated. So we really recommend you go to the PDSES website. And on that website, you can actually join our list or our email reminder list. and it looks kind of like you see on the screen. If you're anything like me, something I want to do doesn't mean I do it necessarily do it if it's 2 months away. So you can get yourself on this list and we will send you email reminders, you know, periodically and certainly right before the window opens to help you remember. The other main thing that you have to do is create, if you haven't already, is create a My SPEDTex account. So there's the SPEDTex website, but then you like where the orange arrow is showing, you create or log in to your My SPEDTex account. And this gets you access to the PDSES parent portal, which is where you apply and where you return when you want to see the status of your application and so on and so forth. So the only way that you can access your PDSES stuff is through the My SPEDTex account. So this is also something that you're going to want to do before you apply. And there, I won't walk through. There's a helpful video that SPEDTex has on it. It's quite simple and easy. It's standard information that you provide to create a My SPEDTex account. And then once you do, this is showing basically a screen of what it looks like when you've logged into your My SPEDTex account. So it looks like this. You can do lots of things on there, more than just PDSES, but the orange arrow is pointing to the PDSES parent portal tile. That's where you'll go to do PDSES things. So let's pretend I click that, and then I'll get into my parent portal. So there's real spin through it quickly. There's four, so you can have a drop down English or Spanish. The application's available in either. There's a navigation panel where you can jump around. There's sort of the central top area where your parent information, contact information is. And then the bottom box, the number 4, is your students. And that's actually the spot where you'll end up checking the most because that's where your students will be added and where their application information will live. So real quickly, let me just walk through this. I mean, it's fairly standard. You're going to add your parent contact information. Can't be blank, so you got to have your standard basic things: first name, last name, address. Your address has to be in Texas, and you cannot be a PO box. By the way, it's got to be a physical address. We have to have a physical place to send the things that you purchase. All of these things can be updated. And so let's say you move, you can go back into your parent portal and update your address right here. You don't have to reach out to us like you used to. The one thing that cannot be updated, however, is the My SPEDTex login email address. That is pre-populated and that's based on the email you use to create your My SPEDTex account. That can be changed, but not as easily as simply going in here and editing. So you will have to reach out to SPEDTex to change that. So the next step would be adding your students. And again, you can do this today. You can't apply for them, but you can add them today. And I'm going to slow down a little bit here just because this is one of the areas that we know some families have experienced some pain points. It can be slightly confusing. And so what happens when you click add student down below, it takes you to a lookup page. And here is where we've learned one of the trickier parts of the application process might be, and keep in mind, the vast majority of folks are able to add their student fairly easily, I would say, without problem. But I do want to slow down here and just walk you through the steps of adding your student. And there's a lot of kids in Texas, and we have to make sure you are adding your student, obviously. So there is certain information that only parents will have that they'll have to add here. So one of those is that you'll have to add the unique identification number of your student. And there's two options. There's something called the UID, which is the 10-digit state number. If you don't know that, you can ask your student's school. Or you can use the number that you used to register when you first registered your student with the school, and most families use Social Security number. If you didn't use that, the school will have provided something called an S number. That one of those two options, just want to sort of mention if you're worried about using the social security number, we do not store that anywhere. Once you've found your student, it goes away. It's not ever stored, or if you're worried about that security. Um, then after that, you have to enter your student's name, first name and last name and date of birth, and it has to match exactly um, the way your student is listed in state records by the school. And so we've had issues if a student has, for instance, an apostrophe in their name or a dash in their name or some kind of strange or unusual character, um, and it gets left out. If it doesn't match, it will say there is not a match. So it has to match exactly in order to find your student. Or like if your student is named Jonathan, but everybody calls him Johnny, if you type in Johnny and it doesn't match, it won't work. So this kind of walks you through what you'll see. If you do get a match, you've entered everything correctly, the boxes kind of light up green, and you'll click search. And then the middle set of boxes shows, hey, it found the student. You're going to check that. It populates it below. It checks their UID, their student name, their date of birth. Make sure it's your student, and then you simply click add student. It gives you a little like confirmation green, like it's been successfully added to your profile. And this is what you'll see after you've done that. The top box will show on your student um, box on your home page. It'll show your student's been added. Now you can't do anything yet with it today because the application's not open. So it'll look like this box before the window opens. It'll look like that top box. It'll just show your UID, student name, date of birth, and then all the other columns are blank. And then I put the below another rectangle because after the window opens, you'll notice that there's that row, except at the very end, there's now an apply button. So at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st, the apply button becomes available, and that's where you'll go to apply for your student. By the way, if you have more than one student, you'll simply like repeat the process that I went through, and you'll add and you'll see like several rows with each of your students. So after you've clicked applied, you have to make 3 promises. You'll read through all these instructions. You have to agree that there's a 30-day account activation requirement. This is not from the day you're signing right here. This is like once you get your account, we want to let you know pre-warning, you'll have to activate that account within 30 days once you get it. Otherwise, funds will be reclaimed and repurposed. You have to certify that you have the authority you are essentially that legal definition of a parent. You have the authority to make decisions on behalf of the student, and then you have to certify that everything is accurate and correct. And then you'll click, let's see, how can I then you'll click the blue submit button, and that's it. Your application will be submitted, and you'll see at the very bottom that rectangle now shows all kinds of things: the UID, the student name, the date of birth, but then now also it'll have filled in the application ID, the submission date, the timestamp, the status, so on and so forth. And all the way on the side, there's a blue button that says cancel. So if you want to cancel your application, you can. It's up to you. We do not recommend. It's heartbreaking sometimes. We've had that happen where they accidentally cancel an application, and that means they have to then reapply. So please don't cancel unless you absolutely want to. Okay, here's where I want to slow down. I mentioned that star. There are a handful of families who may need to upload documentation as part of the process in order to help us determine your student is eligible. So I wanted to spend a minute on that just in case. Now, the vast majority of people who apply do not need to upload documentation. We take your student's record, we check it against state records to make sure your student meets the basic eligibility criteria, that they are enrolled and that they are served through special education. If state data shows that, we don't need uploaded documentation. We have what we need. What happens, however, is that there is a lag in that data, so that there's something called the fall snapshot data for PEIMS data, and we don't get that information. Schools have to send it to TEA, and so if your student became eligible after in this October 1st of 2025 of this school year, like let's say your student was getting evaluated, but you did not have your first initial admission review and dismissal meeting, ARD meeting to begin receiving special education services until say January, until like now. The snapshot data that the school sends us will not reflect that. And so our data it'll look like the student is not eligible. All this to say, if your student only became eligible in the last 4 months for enrollment or served through special education eligibility, those families we recommend upload their student's IEP, individualized education program, as part of the application process. That way, instead of us just sending you a flat like rejection, you're denied. That way we can review that documentation. We can see, oh, yep, they are eligible, and that way you won't receive a denial. Last thing is checking your status. At the bottom, the box says, please be patient. There will be some, just forewarning, there might be some waiting in this process. If you're applying, it takes some time for us to process all the applications, to read all those IEPs that are uploaded. And so if you're anxious about that, or you want, what the purpose of this slide is to let you know that you can always check your status. You don't need to, we won't send it out to you, for example. You can just log back into your parent portal and check your status. In so doing, we ask that you remain as patient as possible, please. We know that it can take several months, and you might be logging in and checking your status, and it's still the same status as it was. I think I saw a gentleman come through the chat earlier that they had applied late March last year, and they're still waiting, and that can happen. And I'm sorry that's happened, but that happens. And so please be patient. We do process applications in the order they were submitted. And so if you submit late in the window, it might be later on for us to arrive to your application. Eventually, however, if your student's eligible, you will receive an account. And here's where that 30-day comes into play. So we send you an email saying, hey, your student is eligible, but it's waiting to be funded. Eventually, you'll get an email from Class Wallet, from the actual like place that has the money, and where you spend the money. And that's when the 30 days begins. Obviously, you don't have to log in and spend money on if you don't have an account yet. Once you get that, though, a clock starts ticking on your 30 days. So if you're eligible and you get your email from Class Wallet, you have to then log in. You have to sign something called the PDSES parental agreement, following all our rules. And there's that then gives you access to the funds, and you'll see them, and then you'll have a purse deadline to spend those funds. And so I won't go into into all those tiny details, but just know that you are required to activate and log into your account, and then you are required to spend those funds within a certain amount of time. Katrina will walk through. There are a few, like there is an option to get an extension if you needed more time, and so on and so forth. So I will happily turn it over to her to walk you through the PDSES marketplace. Katrina?
Thanks, Huck. So once a PDSES account has been awarded, then you're going to receive that access to the PDSES marketplace, Class Wallet. So we want to take a look at how parents can spend their funds once they get that account. So we've talked a little bit about Class Wallet. So that's the online marketplace for the PDSES program. And that is where the funds live. So kind of like Huck said, that's where the funds are being held. And then you are able to access your account with that $1,500 in there. And then you'll get that Class Wallet email that will give you step by step how to log in, how to accept that parent agreement that he had talked about, and then how to start spending your funds from the approved vendors and providers that are there on the platform. So we have over 70 vendors on the Class Wallet platform. So it's kind of like an online mall where you go in and you are able to see all these different stores, and you can choose educational items, a variety of educational and therapeutic items for your student. We have a lot of technology. A lot of parents will purchase technology items like computers, tablets, printers. They can check out some stores like Best Buy is on there, Apple for Families, Office Depot. So we have a lot of good options in there. Some families choose to purchase sensory items for their students, and we have some good vendors like Fun and Function and School Outfitters, the sensory site, that have a variety of those sensory items. The other thing that parents like to purchase are any kind of educational, like manipulative for math or science and STEM area supplies, reading programs. We have quite a few reading programs in there. So, some really great options for parents. Sometimes it gets overwhelming with the number of options that are in there. And we understand that. And that's why we have consultants on hand to help you find whatever it is that will educationally benefit your student. That's one of our favorite things to do is to help families find the things that they need. And that might be through the items, or it may be through some of our other direct pay vendors or our service providers. So that is something that if you get overwhelmed, please reach out to us because we can help you find a specific item. Or if you need ideas on items, all of our consultants are very well versed in special education and have been teachers before, and they can help you with that. All right. So these are some of the like the top five items by category that have been purchased. So most commonly purchased items. So you can kind of see that broken down. Some families want to create a learning space in their home, so they might purchase a desk, the desk chair, a computer, the printer. They might get the whole setup so that their student has a dedicated area to do their homework. We've already talked about some of the sensory needs, so you can buy weighted items, fidgets, adaptive seating. So some parents are setting up kind of a sensory area in their home with things that they have purchased from the grant. Families have shared with us how beneficial it's been to be able to replicate if there are good things going on in school, that they are able to replicate in that home, in their home, so they can set up the same kind of area, and that reinforces that learning for them. So we do have some specific purchasing guidelines to make sure that those items are providing a direct educational benefit. We do have some limits on how many items can be purchased or a maximum price allowed. For example, each eligible student can purchase one computer and one tablet. Um, we can purchase a desk. We had talked about setting up that learning area. So you can purchase a desk for your student, but it can't be over $300. So you get those purchasing guidelines, and we are able to help you with those as well. The PDSES team is going to review every order that comes in. So they're going to have eyes on everything that comes through the platform. If something doesn't meet the requirements, so if someone tried to order a desk that was $500, that's going to be rejected, and the parent is going to receive a email of the reason why it was rejected. So we have to make sure that we are following these guidelines. We also are able to help you. So if there's something that um, maybe it's not considered educational through the guidelines, maybe there's an alternate item that we can suggest. So our team is really good about doing that. Okay. So we really like it. We love that parents are able to access these funds to pay for services. So we have a wide range of service providers across the state that can meet the educational and therapeutic needs of our families. They provide tutoring, counseling, equine therapy, camps. A lot of parents are using their funds on summer camps. Dyslexia therapy is a really good one or a really big one. Also, ABA is up there. So there are a lot of services that are available to be spent to have funds utilized on. We have to remember that those services are direct to the student, so they can't be used for assessments, evaluations, legal services, daycare, late or cancellation fees, or advocacy. Here you're going to see our provider map. So this kind of shows you where our providers are. You can use the search feature on the side to see is my provider here? Your student might already be receiving speech therapy, and they might have their therapist might already be an approved provider with us. So you can kind of check that here. If you don't know, yes, my kid needs some tutoring. I want to find a tutor close to my house. You can also use this map here because you can put your zip code in and sort it by provider. If you look here and you don't see your speech or your tutor that you're currently using, you can reach out to us and we can provide them the information on applying and becoming an approved provider with us. Let me see what other points do we need. Each account has a spending deadline. So if we're going to use our funds on services, we really encourage you to start that as soon as the account is awarded. If you need an extension later on to continue those services, then you can work with our team and we can get you an extension for that. All right. Now we want to move into some of those frequently asked questions. And I've seen some of these questions in the chat, so I'm glad that we're doing this, Huck. So let's go ahead and start that. So the first one, do I need a SPEDTex account to apply?
I'll take this one. Thank you, Katrina. Yes, the answer to this is yes. I hope you already knew the answer to this. The only way you can access the PDSES application is through your SPEDTex account. So if you do not already have one, you will need to create one before you can access the PDSES parent portal and apply. I will mention the system is compatible with mobile devices and phones, but it is a little bit easier and better and recommended if possible. If you can use a computer or a tablet, the screen is a little bit easier to manage.
For sure. All right, this is one that I saw come through Huck earlier. So do students who attend private school qualify? And then what about students who are being served through 504?
Great questions. The answer to both of these is no. Students for this program, students must be enrolled in a Texas public school. That includes open enrollment charter schools, but not private schools. So students enrolled in a private school do not qualify for the PDSES grant program. That includes a small sliver of students who attend a private school, but they do receive drop-in itinerant special education services at a public school, and it's through something called proportionate share. Those students are also not eligible for the PDSES program. As for the 504, the Section 504 students, although they do have a disability, as I mentioned, but the rules of this program are that to be eligible, you have to be served through special education. And so students served under Section 504 are not eligible for the PDSES program because they are not served through special education.
Okay. All right, so what if my student is in the process of being evaluated for special education when that application opens on April 1st?
Great question. Thank you. I want to start by just shouting out there. We get so much help from schools and from school professionals, from teachers, from administrators, from the people who do the evaluations and who participate in art committee meetings, and for instance, diagnosticians or LSSPs. Um, as you probably know, if you have a student with a disability who's gone through the process, it takes a bit of time to complete the whole evaluation process and then sit down on an art committee and find that the student, develop an IEP and all those things. If you are in the middle of that evaluation process, but your student has not yet actually formally begun receiving special education services, you should not apply until you've actually had the initial ARD meeting and determined eligibility. That is when you should apply. If you apply before your student actually begins receiving special education services, you will be denied and then strongly encouraged to reapply the following year when that student is eligible.
All right, so now they've gotten an email from your program. So the award decision email says waiting to be funded. So now what's next?
Sure. I want to take a little bit of time and hopefully I'll find some magic words. This is the most commonly asked question I get is, hey, what is taking so long? When will I get my account? So what happens is we review and we determine your student is eligible, but we cannot fund your account until we actually have the funds to do so, and funds come irregularly for different reasons. So it's not possible to always predict exactly when that will be. So we say, please be patient, and your status is something called waiting to be funded. You're eligible, but you're waiting to be funded. So how does that happen and how do we do that fairly? So I wanted to sort of try to explain that. So it's done according to the order in which you applied. So when you submit your application, you click that blue submit button, it records a timestamp of when that was. So that puts you in a line. However, the program, according to program rules, prioritizes students who receive free or reduced lunch, who are called economically disadvantaged according to their PEMS code. A certain number of those are prioritized by the program. And so they're still in line. They're still going. It's almost like there are two lines, really. There's a prioritized line and we're still going in according to the order the application was submitted. But students who are eligible to receive free or reduced lunch according to their PEMS documentation will likely receive accounts before students who are not coded that way. And so if you're waiting a long time or longer, or let's say your neighbor applied and you applied on the same day, but your neighbor's student, they get their funds before you do, it's likely because of the prioritization structure.
Thank you. All right, so now what if we get an award decision email that says your student is not eligible for the PDSES program? And I think, yes, my student is being served in special education and is eligible. What should I do?
Correct. Great question. So there's an the main answer I want you to take away, there's an appeal process. It's very simple. That same part of the application I showed you where you click apply for your student, or you could have clicked cancel for application. What will happen if you're denied, if state data shows your student is not eligible, um, and we did not get the correct documentation uploaded to show you're eligible, you will get a denial. That's not the end of the road, though. So at that moment, an appeal button becomes an option. If your student is in fact eligible, you will be required to upload your student's individualized education program, a digital copy of the full, most recent IEP. We will be happy to look through it, confirm eligibility, reverse the decision, and award your account. So we process lots of appeals for that situation. I just want folks to know, if your student is eligible, we are on your side. We are trying, we'll work with you over and over to make sure we get what we need to confirm that eligibility, and then we will go ahead and change your status back to eligible.
Thank you.
Okay, Katrina,
Yes.
now a family has gotten through the process of being determined eligible and they finally get their class wallet, their email that awards their account.
Hmm.
Tell me about is there a time limit for the family to log in and activate or an activation requirement?
Yes, thanks for asking that because that is a common question. And really they're going to get the family is going to get a series of emails. But the one that they're looking for that activation is going to be that Class Wallet welcome email. So after they get the email from Class Wallet, then that's kind of where you said earlier their clock starts ticking. So this is where they need to log in. They need to follow the directions that are very well laid out in that email, to follow the directions to accept their parental acknowledgement and agreement. So they are going to log into that. Class Wallet calls that an affidavit. So they're going to look for that affidavit and they are going to read through it and accept that affidavit. We will send out so many reminders about that. You'll get text reminders, you'll get email reminders, you'll get phone calls. So we do not want anyone to miss that activation requirement.
Thanks. And could you walk us through again, what can parents purchase? This is one of the most commonly asked questions I get. Like, what is allowable? What is not allowable? What can parents purchase with their PDSES funds?
All right. Yes. So the PDSES funds are for the students' educational use. So direct educational use. So we review their orders to make sure that we're following those guidelines. So anything that supports your student's education, we had talked about some of the reading programs earlier, a lot of STEM materials, adaptive and communication devices. So sometimes insurance might not cover a certain communication device. So a parent might purchase one of those. Anything that's going to give them support and access to their instruction. That's something those are things that we're going to be able to approve. Some of the things that we can't approve, and you saw on that purchasing guidelines, we can't approve home goods or appliances or anything that's going to be leaning more toward home or medical type things, as far as items go. So we want to make sure that those are the things that we are looking at, support the educational needs. When we're looking at services, we're excited when parents want to use their funds on services, and you can use your funds for tutoring, ABA, speech, all of those services we talked about earlier. We want to make sure that those all services are also going to directly support your students' learning. So, and that's why that direct educational impact has to be directly to the student. So that's why we can't do the legal or advocacy fees, evaluation fees, when it comes to services. So if you have an item that's questionable, we that you think we might question, you have the opportunity to add a justification for that, and we can take that into consideration. So that kind of helps us know this is why I'm choosing this. And then we can see whether that still is following the guidelines. So we do try to, like I said, we try to help parents find what's beneficial to their students. We may offer alternate items or talk to you about something, that might be a better fit for the program. I feel like I rambled on with that, Huck. So, sorry.
No, and yeah, it's such an it's a pain point for some families. So
Yeah.
thank you for walking us through that. What about reimbursements? This is another common one. If a parent buys something like before they apply, can they pay themselves back and reimburse themselves later using PDSES funds?
No. So the program doesn't allow for reimbursement, so they cannot reimburse. So we say, please don't make any purchases until you get access to your Class Wallet account, and then purchases for items need to be through that marketplace. So you need to shop in that mall for your educational items because we're not going to be able to reimburse you later on. We have had some parents before that have said, "Oh, but you told me that Staples was an approved vendor," and they are, but you can't walk into a Staples and shop. You have to shop through the Class Wallet marketplace. Um, as far as services go, so we have also had parents try to submit invoices for services that have already been paid for, and we can't pay anything that's already been paid. Now, if you have an invoice if today I had an invoice for tutoring that happened in December and I'm awarded my account today, I can upload that invoice to be paid for the approved provider at this time. So if you have older invoices that are unpaid and you get awarded, you are able to submit those for payment as long as your provider is approved.
Thanks. And just last thing, if there's any, at any moment through their journey, any of the folks out there who are applying, who are seeing this recording, need help at any time, can you just tell us how can folks get help?
Yes. So again, this is what our team loves to do, loves to help parents, and we can help you from the beginning to the end. So if you are having difficulty with that application, we are going to have consultants on hand to help you. You can always email us at pdseshelp@region10.org and we will get back with you. We'll get back with you via email. If you ask to speak with one of us, we will have a consultant reach out to you. We do have consultants that are available. If you work during the day and you need someone to call you after hours, we can make arrangements for that. So we are going to help you in any way we can. So email us for any of those questions. You can also reach out to SPEDTex at that 1-800 number. They're going to be able to help you with some of those application. They're going to help you walk through that application. They're going to be able to answer some general questions for you. So they are also a great resource. Later on down the road, when you get your account, if there is an issue with an order, like you've submitted an order and you had several items on it and you received a couple of the items, but you're missing something, that's when you're going to reach out to Class Wallet. So there are a couple of instances where Class Wallet is going to be your go-to. And throughout the program, we are sending you communication. You're getting communication from HUC at TEA. You're getting communication from us. And that is going to help you. We're going to be reaching out and saying, if you need help, if you have questions, and then if you have other things that might be more Class Wallet, we're going to give you that contact information. I again rambled, Huck.
Thanks.
But so again, SPEDTex is your source for special education information. So if you have any general outside of PDSES, if you have general special education information questions, please reach out to them. Their information is here on the screen, and they are so happy to help you.
And thanks, y'all. I also want to finish here just with a call to action on these are the 4 things you can do right now to prepare in case you're somebody who wants to apply. So go ahead, visit the PDSES website, learn about the program, join that email list so that you get our emails to remind you about when the application opens. Go ahead and create your SPEDTex account if you don't already have one, and then go ahead and get into your PDSES parent portal, add put your contact information, add your students, and so that you're ready to simply click the apply button on 8 a.m. Central Standard Time on April 1st when the window opens. So those are 4 things that you can do to prepare to apply. And then with that, I just want to thank you all very, very much for your time. And we really look forward to hopefully you having a really positive PDSES experience. And we hope this program in some way, hopefully a great way, helps your student, helps your child. So thank you for your time, and I'll turn it back to Sarah.